All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to Reflect, Recalibrate. Whoop, whoop. We are your lovely Lady Artivist hosts, the lovely Janet E. Dandridge and myself, Danny Snyder. This is part two of the Quotidian Radicality Collection. We are going to be chatting with Jessica Valoris. I'm so excited. Jessica is an interdisciplinary artist and community facilitator based in Washington, D.C., where yours truly are also from. She weaves together mixed media painting, installation, ritual performance, and social practice to create sacred spaces. Inspired by earth-based and syncretic traditions of her Black American Jewish ancestry, her art activates ancestral wisdom, personal reflection, and community study. Welcome, Jessica. Come on.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all. It's good to be here.
I'm so excited, but I'm also kind of got that like nervous energy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right.
We actually did some breathing before we came on, but I still feel like I need to do some breathing to get into this because we're gonna get into it, y'all. We are. But before we do, Janet, y'all know the drill. Janet's gonna give us a news bite for the day. Janet, what's our news bite today?
So today's news bite comes from the BBC on May 21st, 2026. So, U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to build a 250-foot tall arch in Washington, D.C., has inched one step closer to reality after passing a key hurdle in the approval process. The U.S. Commission of Fine Arts, CFA, an agency that reviews design plans for government projects, voted on Thursday to approve a revised design for the structure, according to U.S. media. The so-called Arc de Trump, the latest in the US president's efforts to remake the capital city in his style, oh my gosh, would commemorate the country's 250th anniversary this summer. We're the only important and major city that doesn't have a triumphal arch, Trump told reporters on Thursday after hearing that the new design was approved. Trump has pursued a number of projects during his second term to revamp the U.S. Capitol, including a gilded makeover of the Oval Office, constructing a White House ballroom estimated to cost around 400 million US dollars, paving over the White House Rose Garden, and renovating the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. After the CFA, Commission of Fine Arts approval, the National Capital Planning Commission, NCPC, will review the proposed design with a meeting scheduled on the 4th of June. New commemorations typically need congressional approval as part of a 24-step plan developed by the NCPC. Once again, that's the National Capital Planning Commission. But Trump has repeatedly said he does not plan to seek approval from Congress for the arch. As for who will pay for the new memorial, the sponsors of an approved memorial have to raise the funds for it, and federal law prohibits the use of government funds for such purposes. So what do we say to that? I'll go to you first. Jessica?
Uh, I don't know what to say to that. This is what fascists do, right? Like
Right.
they recreate the landscape to forward their narrative and also to enact domination. I just feel like this is another like performance of domination. Like even the whole thing around like bypassing the approval process, which is something that he's done over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Um, I do think it's interesting the site that they chose because Arlington National Cemetery, that's the site, right? Where the ark is going to be.
It's going to be around that area, yes. And that, that circle where you're entering from Virginia, let's say you're coming from Reagan National Airport, the circle before you get to that, you get to the Wilson Bridge.
Okay.
So it's right around that area where you're talking about, the Arlington Cemetery.
Okay. Yeah. So Arlington Cemetery used to be Freedmen's Village, which was one of the first free Black towns that was funded by the government. Most free Black towns were not. And it was like one of the only not only, but it was successful for several generations. And then that community was displaced several times. So even where the Pentagon sits used to be a free Black town, where Arlington Cemetery was Freedmen's Village. Um, so it's interesting to me that that is the site. And even thinking about the Lincoln Memorial, and Lincoln as, even though he's a complicated figure, he is a symbol of emancipation. So it's interesting to me, like the political theater around this arch and these other, upgrades or things that he's like redesigning. And I wonder how much of that is also like these kind of like dog whistle to like kind of this like white nationalist um uh aesthetic, I guess, or like
Yeah.
to that community of folks. Because of these places that he's targeting, that is seemingly just like, we can write off as like his stupidity and his like, grandeur and, kind of emperor's new clothes. But I think some of it also feels like it's targeted,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my
Danny.
thought.
Right. No, I'm there. I know Danny's there as well.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny. Our facial expressions while you were reading that whole thing. There was the amount of eye crossing and eye rolls was fantastic. No, I just also am like, can I just say an arch? You couldn't think of anything more creative than an arch? We have to like, okay, whatever. But I just, here we are celebrating the 250th anniversary and just, I feel like completely forgetting that for 250 years, we had enslaved people building all these things in our country. What kind of reparations have we made to them while we spend $100 million on a stupid arch, on an arch? Like, what if we took that money and actually put it towards reparations? Like, has there been any conversation of that in this whole celebration? So that's what is so infuriating to me.
They want reparations for white people.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how they've like reappropriated the reparations conversation.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Is
Wow.
that the slush fund as well that has been coming up? The slush fund that you have to apply to, I think. And there's already people who are part of his cult that are saying, yes, I want to get my money for being accused of treason for what we did at the Capitol, which was our right to do.
I mean,
So,
this is also, I mean, I feel like this it is a fascist move, right? Like he
Yeah.
is moving financial resources to the minions that will support him staying in power and his whole consort, right? So like as ridiculous as it seems and we can like laugh at it, like it's really dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
These is going to the
right.
Proud Boys. It's going to like, all of these like formations who are highly organized and very violent.
Hmm.
And that's incredibly scary to me because even when he is not in power, these groups then still have the power to torment um and target our folks. So
Right. Right.
yeah, it's like sometimes I have to laugh at it to stop myself from being so angry, but it doesn't take away the insidious like threat that it actually poses to our ability to live. And people are already, being disappeared. And um yeah, it's just it's a scary time to be in. um yeah.
And to Danny's point about something more creative, he can't be creative because he wants to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
He wants to make this the city of DC, the country, like other places in the world. That's what he literally
Yeah.
said. We're the
Hmm.
only ones who
Hmm.
don't have this
Right.
park. And then we're going to model it basically after what the French have in Paris. So it's all about greed and power and hate and total disregard for life. He has no concern about where I should say him, his entire administration and everyone who supports him have no concern for anyone whatsoever. So the thought of reparations is not even in their vocabulary. It's not even in anywhere in their brain. I'm so disgusted. And as you're saying, Jessica, the laughter is a laugh of just like, please give me the strength to not do something that reflects the hate that they are giving, because that's not what I want to do. Yeah. So how else can I shift that? How else can I combat that? Is what I'm thinking when I continuously hear and read about him and his cronies. The entire National Planning Commission, they're all his folks. I mean, the CFA, the Commission on of Fine Arts, because he appointed all of those people and got rid of the people who were on the actual council in the first, the commission in the first place. I believe it's the commission or both of them. So it just makes it difficult to be able to fight back inside that. But here we are today, talking about how we fight back within this and outside of it. Yeah. And I'm looking at it as closing in on them and squashing them. I'm sorry.
Well, I will say, I think it is important for us too to not lose ourselves in the despair of it, because actually there are wins that are happening. So I have a friend, shout out to Emily, who does narrative, public narrative work around reparations. And basically the work, it's reframing how we think about reparations in general. And that's Black folks, white folks, Latinx folks, everybody. And she shared with me this study that they had been doing over the past few years to just understand how people's understanding of reparations has kind of shifted. And she says it's actually really interesting because some of the language that they've been developing as a team around to move people to a place where they can be more readily and open to the conversation around reparations, and some of that same language is now being used by the administration, by Trump's administration. So in some ways it's a loss, but in some ways it's a win, because getting more of when you think about narrative work, it's around how to connect people's values to actual policy. And so if we can start getting people's language and values to understand oh, reparations is actually a thing that's important. And then we need to do the political education to understand why reparations to white people actually isn't a thing. There are some ways of that, right? But it requires both the narrative work and also the political education happening at the same time. And, I think a lot of times fascism, those governments, movements, they come out of this gasp for power. So I think sometimes it is also remembering that on the scope of we have a lot to do and learn in terms of nourishing and strengthening our movements. But when you look at the scope of public opinion in the United States, it leans way more left than elections will have us believe. So I think, just being able to tune into the where's their opportunity to shift the narrative or shift what we understand as reality, which is also a thing that's being constantly questioned, right?
Right.
Yeah, and to just sit in the messiness and the complexity of all of that and the pain. I mean, it's hard. It's painful. But I think there are moments of opportunity and hope for sure.
Well, thank you all for. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, the laughing for me, it's just the theater of the absurd right now. That's really what it is. To me, it's become a defense mechanism, maybe. I've been reading the Book of Joy, which is the interview with Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And I've been thinking about this a lot, reflecting on how to find joy when there's so much pain and suffering. And that was kind of my framework coming into this conversation today, because I've had a rough week. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but yeah, I would love to talk about more about that for me personally, but just, anyone here, as we talk about quotidian radicality and we talk about practicing joy in all of this, and then that can be radical too, right? How we do this on the daily. So, Janet, do you want to jump into the first question for today? Oh, I see.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I can share, but I didn't know I interrupted you earlier, so I didn't know if you had another follow-up you
Um,
wanted to. That's just where I was just saying where my brain's at.
yeah. No, I was giving thanks for y'all just responding to that news bite, and so that we can get into our conversation because I'm the timekeeper. So, but yes, the first thing that we want to explore today, which is for us and specifically asking Jessica, and we'll put it in the chat as well for our audience, is how does quotidian radicality resonate in your work right now and for the audience in your life right now? And so we're going to remind everyone what the description of quotidian radicality is that we shared in part 1 of this collection that we found on Jessica's website. So quotidian radicality means the mundane, everyday practices that we engage to refuse systems of oppression, and return to our truth. It is a term used by scholar Deborah Thomas to describe the ways that Black women, who were more severely punished when attempting to escape and who were more bound to enslavement because of gender familial expectations, practice liberatory ways of being through language, dance, foodways, gardening, child rearing, and other seemingly small radical acts. So, Jessica, how does quotidian radicality resonate in your work right now?
I think something that feels really powerful around the term quotidian radicality is that it gives back our agency, or allows us to like reclaim our agency and understand that every choice that we make is has the potential to be liberatory or to nourish a movement of liberation. And some of those choices are already compromised and hard to make. Sometimes it asks us to step into a space of deeper risk, risking relationships, risking time, risking energy, risking our safety or security. But I think when I think about quotidian radicality, it kind of creates this space for me to understand that my life has purpose and meaning to myself, that's like internal and spiritual, but also to the communities that I'm a part of and beholden to. Um, so like where do I choose to get my food from? Or when do I choose to spend less time working and more time doing things that are seemingly unproductive, like spending time with family or friends or tending to the care of a loved one? Um, or when do I make a harder choice of like, oh, I could get this thing pretty easy on Amazon, but let me like actually drive to the place that is going to be harder to get, or it's more ethical to get, like, and sometimes those decisions are not easy to make or create or are create hardship. But I think there is power in like being able to return to those conversations and our values every time we make a decision or a choice in our actions. And so quotidian radicality for me is like really rooted in like, what are our practices on a daily basis, on like whatever cycles of time we're on, like every new moon, what are we doing? Every time there's an election cycle, what are we doing? Every time there's like somebody that is grieving, how are we tending to them? But like thinking about the ways that we continue to practice liberation. And the last thing that I would say is that I really think about liberation as a practice. It's not a destination. And Fred Moten says, escape. I feel like I'm gonna butcher this quote. uh, Escape is a is an activity, not an achievement. And thinking about even then, even when we like have imagined what liberation can look like, we can always imagine more liberation. And you know, we're dynamic shifting beings. And so thinking about liberation as a commitment to a practice of how do we be with ourselves, with each other, with spirit, with land, um, to create the kind of world that is sustainable and is like and honors like the interconnectedness of all things. So yeah, that was a long, windy answer, but
No, it's good. That's good. And I guess where my brain is at, as I'm thinking about in the art making, what does that look like for you? Like, I don't know. I mean, I can see many ways how that can look like for you. And I've seen images of your work too, of course. But can you maybe give an example of like, let's say the last time you were in the art process? I don't know if that was today, yesterday. I mean, I guess we're always in the art process really, but
one thing that I've been kind of laughing at myself. So I wanted to apply to this. There's this thing called Art Bank DC, which is like DC government has an open call for artists to submit work that then is bought by the government and put in different, or bought by the like DC local government and then placed in different public buildings. And I realized like I feel like I've been making so much art, but I don't have a lot of artifacts or things because so much of my work is the process, like the process of making a thing. And I think that's how quotidian radicality lives in my work, that I like echo a practice a lot. I do a lot of devotional work. So it's like I'll choose a thing that I'm going to do over and over again or like on a daily basis. And I commit to that as a practice or as an intention. Um, I'm in more recently just thinking a lot more about like what are the actual materials that I'm using? What is like where does the source of those materials? What happens when those materials are disposed of? I love color, so I've been like really feeling challenged around my like love for acrylic and like I know it's terrible for the environment. So that's like a tension that I'm in right now and just like trying to figure out like, well, what other materials can I use that feel like I can be in more aligned integrity with my values and how I want to care for the planet. Um, so I think that's how it kind of shows up in my work too, is like how I choose to be present to the work and to the material and to the stories that it holds um and not being so focused on the product or whatever comes out of it, but like really be invested of like how am I present in the process and how am I true to that at every step. Um, that's yeah, I think that's how it's been showing up currently.
yeah, and I that totally resonates with me. It's process over product, and the process is ever going. And like, you know, we were talking about this in our last episode of how one ritual leads into another, how rite of passages lead into each other, and how one liminal phase leads to the post-liminal, but that post-liminal becomes the liminal phase to another. You know, it's just so it's like we're always growing, we're always changing. And I'm thinking now, I might skip ahead on some of our questions here, Janet. Don't get mad at me.
Oh my gosh, it's all good. I actually have a follow-up
Oh,
to
okay, okay. Let me
what you
pause
just
then.
said because man, being an artist that does not actively create work as product is a challenge. And I hear this from all artists who use performance, who use ceremony.
Mm,
And even though there is a method to being able to create revenue from the type of work, it's the process of that, how you have to create the work to create revenue within this capitalist system.
mm,
And for me, it does not resonate with my spirit. However, I know that I have to take care of bills and groceries, for example. Now, and is one of the bills, groceries and, paying for living expenses of all sorts. So the question always remains, how do you create a sustainable livelihood
Mhm.
as an artist who focuses on the process of the work and how the work impacts the spirit, how the work impacts people's day-to-day lives so that they can utilize it to have joy or create joy or have relaxation. How do we do that as artists
Mhm.
who do not necessarily want to put our work always into like the art bank? I know exactly what you're talking about. And then looking at the work and saying, oh, I don't have these artifacts, these objects that they want. I actually did this ceremony and
Mhm.
all of this matters. And so how am I going to be able to, utilize these different ways in which I can create money but not sacrifice my soul, like it's I,
Yeah.
I was trying to elaborate on it, but my mind got a little sidetracked. However, that is the question, like
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
I appreciate that question. It actually reminds me of a conversation I had with another friend, Omalara McAllister, who's an incredible artist. And O shared with me a quote from Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth used to sell these portraits, these like photographs of herself. And in the little underneath the
Yes,
portrait, it
yes.
would it there was a quote that said, or I don't know if it was underneath the portrait itself, or if this was just a quote from Sojourner Truth about these postcards that people would buy. So, Sojourner Truth is going around the country doing all of these speeches. Um, so Sojourner Truth says, I sell the shadow to support the substance. And thinking about like, okay, so the shadow is lit for her was literally her own like likeness in this photograph that she's selling in order to fundraise to continue to tour and to create a
Mhm.
platform for herself, and a platform for these movements that she's advocating for around suffrage, around human rights for Black folks, and civil rights. So I think about that as an artist, like, well, I do like creating objects too, but I'm also always like the process of creating them is always more interesting to me than like the thing that is at the end. But I have also been thinking about like what are the artifacts that we create through the the less tangible, like if we're doing performance or ritual or collective ceremony, like what comes out of those spaces that then can be an artifact to preserve the memory of that
Mhm.
moment, that like I can now look at this rock or maybe this like I don't know, this like amulet that we created
Mhm.
that now can tell the story of a moment that happened in collective space. So I've been thinking about that too, like specifically for myself as an interdisciplinary artist, what are aspects of my performance that then can be translated into like physical object or maybe a card or a zine. Like I love to make zines. Um, so just like thinking about little things that actually get seeded in collective space, but then can be carried on to be seeds for
Mhm.
other, that hopefully inspire and kind of echo the work. So that's something that I've been thinking about. And I also like building things. And sometimes I'm like, and then I don't know what to do with them. Or I feel like I don't want, like, when you think about the art market, I'm like, I don't want this to just go to anybody. Like, this feels
Yeah.
so like that feels a little complicated. I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah. You mean you haven't figured it all out yet?
Jessica,
Not yet, but by
hello.
next Friday,
Ah.
I am like a little bit like Dexter's Laboratory, like mastermind. Like I will create mind maps and calendars of a thing for days, and then like a few days into the process, being like, oh, all of this is trash. Like this plan means
Yeah.
nothing. Like
Yeah. But then it leads to another thing. It leads to
it
another
does,
thing. It's never wasted. It's never time
of course,
wasted.
of course.
Um, and yeah, just thinking about time, like that was a big takeaway for me for the first episode. It's just like being radical takes time.
Yes,
Everything takes time, but definitely being radical takes time.
yes.
Um, yeah, so
And time is a resource.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
it creates really like we have to make hard decisions sometimes of like when we're able to like seed our time and when we're not.
yeah. What you said too about what you both said about this pressure to have a product, right? Whether it's pressure from other people, oh, you're an artist, show me something, or it's like I need a way to sustain the work that I'm doing. You know, not having a product does also feel radical in a way too. And I'm thinking about, and this was a question that I was leaning towards earlier, was that, I'm wondering about when you're facilitating community rituals on remembrance and these conversations on reparations. I'm wondering what are some big takeaways that you're finding in these, like, and I'm not talking about like, oh, here's the thing you're gonna leave with, but just like for you, just in facilitating this work that you've been doing, what are maybe some through lines that you're seeing, some themes that are coming up for you? And it could be just like recently or in your whole process of doing this, which actually, I don't know how long you've been doing this kind of work, actually. Oh.
Well,
Looks
it's
like
a
a long
hard
time.
it's a hard question to answer because I feel like I've been doing this work in very different ways and it's evolved over time. But I
Mhm.
can see like I was doing like devised musical theater as a young person that was all around like social justice. That feels very different from what I'm doing now, but totally in that same lineage. So I'm like, yeah, since I was 13, you know, and maybe earlier, and I just didn't know it. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, there was something that, well, say the question one more
Like, what are big takeaways that you've been finding in these
time.
different community practices you've been doing?
Yeah. So currently I've been sitting a lot with actually the question of time.
Mm,
And and part of it is a question about endurance. Part of it is a question around pace. And part of it is also like a question around like the multiple timelines that we're living within and constructed within. This sounds very in the air, but I think one of the lessons for me has been like slowing all the way down and
mm,
slowing down enough to be able to maintain integrity and right relationship with whomever I'm in community or ritual or ceremony with. Um, yeah, so I think that's the takeaway is just being able to slow down and to make space for breath, to make space
mm.
for like we're in relationship to each other, but we're also in relationship to the land. We're in relationship to our direct ancestors and to the collective ancestors that guide our path. So if I'm constantly on go mode or move mode or like this thing to this, I'm on a calendar, then it makes it harder for me to listen and it makes it harder for me
Mm.
to actually be at the pace of life and living, which moves way slower than the pace of capitalism.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just finding a balance or finding moments where I can like escape the timeline, like where I turn off my phone or I keep Instagram off of my phone or ways that I like just allow myself to drop in. I have my own like daily prayer practice. Um, so I think that has actually been the thing that like anchors me the most and finding ways to create my own cycles of time or honor the cycles of time that I want to have guiding my life that go beyond like the fiscal year. So really honoring every new moon and every full moon and my relationship to myself at those intervals. Like honoring different forms of spiritual time, thinking about the equinox or certain holidays that are important to my ancestral lineage. Um, and so for me, it's like kind of like allowing my body to tap into other timelines that actually are truer for me, and bring me back to my like the rhythm that is actually like in alignment with my health and well-being and the way I want to be in the world. And then the second thing I would say is relationship is like just really honoring relationship and trusting. I find sometimes like I'll invite some people to things and some people show up and some people don't, and really trusting like whoever's supposed to be there will be there and will show up in the way they need to. Like I don't just facilitate ritual. Like I invite people to like co-create with me. So I do feel like I have some facilitative gifts that I offer, but it's also like so does everybody else. And anytime I'm in a space what I understand is like, what are the things that I'm bringing? Like, I'm offering history, I'm offering study, I'm offering breathing techniques, but people have their own blood memory and wisdom that they also offer the space. And maybe sometimes it's just about creating the space for that allows people to then feel comfortable enough to let their own gifts be offered to each other. Um, and I think, yeah, every time I've been in any kind of like communal ritual or ceremony, like I'm just like, wow, there's like I can drop into prayer by myself, but when we drop into like a sacred space together, it's just like the synergy, the synchronicity. Like one person will tell a story about their uncle, who then inspires a story about someone's child, who then connects to like, oh, the meaning of my own name means this, and then like there's ways that we kind of elevate each other's truths when we're safe enough and comfortable enough, and held enough to share them. And I think that that just creates a level of like collective wisdom that we can't do by ourselves. And that's really, I feel like, the gift of shared ritual is being able to drop into that like collective wisdom that is available to us.
I think that's the integral element, is the sharing,
Hmm.
right? And being able to open oneself to that space and sharing and learning and gaining all kinds of insights that help us on a daily basis. Talking about quotidian radicality, I'm thinking about our discussion, or a discussion that Danny and I were having regarding mutual aid. And we talked about this in one of our collections. It sounds like, and this is what it looks like to me, and it feels like to me, the spaces that you're creating is mutual aid.
Yeah.
When we consider garden spaces, right, or co-ops, places like that, that is definitely forms of mutual aid. But seldomly do I hear people speak about these types of collective ceremonial spaces as mutual aid, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
If we continue to help each other, we can move forward, we can progress if we're listening, actively listening, and taking that time. And you brought up your ancestry, and I would love to hear more about that and that relation to what you're facilitating and what you're creating. Can you speak to that?
Well, that's so, yes. Also, when you were talking about it, just in my head, what clicked for me was like, yes, ancestral veneration is mutual aid. Like,
Mm,
our
right.
ancestors want to help us out. They're just waiting for us to be like, pick up the line.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
Yes.
and we also need to nourish them too, in order for that. That's like a reciprocal relationship. There are things that maybe they weren't able to heal in their lifetime, or traumas that they endured, that we can offer our healing to, our courage to, our witnessing to. And in the same way, like they're also helping us to guide during our path. So like there's ways that we can attune our listening to their guidance. And yeah, that is mutual aid. I never thought of it until you said it like that. And I was like, yep. Um, so my lineage, I'm from Black folks from South Carolina, by way of the transatlantic slave trade, and Jewish folks from Ukraine, Lithuania, and we're still discovering some other places. So there might be like some Poland, some Russia in there. Um, uh, and both of those lineages feel like they just shape all of who I am and how I understand myself in the world, and also shape my practice of ancestral veneration, and understanding how to hold grief in community and how to hold joy in community and how to like move ourselves into collective action with each other. So, um yeah, I don't know what more to say around that. I feel like that's
You know, you were when we did our pre-show, you were talking about hoodoo, Ifa,
mm,
and Pachacuti, if I'm saying it correctly, earth-based practices of your Southern ancestors.
mm,
And you brought up, I believe, healing is a constant journey, and we revisited that in a moment ago. Actually, you shared a quote. So I am definitely curious about specifics of those practices. I know that there is one that's standing out, one of your works that's standing out in my brain, where you created this outdoor structure that people could visit.
Yeah.
And you were working within all of your lineage to create that. Maybe that would be a good work to share.
Sure. Yeah. So in 20, was this 2020, 2021? I think this was 2020, actually, fall of 2020.
I think I remember reading it as 2020. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I was in a residency in Georgetown, and it was the first time I had a studio space outside of my home. So I was like, okay, let me do bigger things.
Right. Whoop, whoop.
Space. Wow. And that summer, I had done a deep dive into Black fugitivity. So I was reading, I was listening to talks, I was watching documentaries, I was visiting sites of enslaved resistance. I was going to different museums. I was just like consuming as much information I could around Black fugitivity. This was also, the summer of all the BLM protests. I have been in movement spaces for a long time, so that wasn't new to me. But I was in this space of like really trying to figure out like where do we win? Where do we escape? Where do we get away? Like where are there moments in time that we can look to for some kind of roadmap or blueprint? And around that time, I had come across this database called Freedom on the Move that documents fugitive slave ads that were posted in newspapers throughout the U.S. in mostly the 17 and 1800s. Well, yeah, 17 and 18. Most of them are in the 1800s. And there was something in me that was like, I want to tend to these names and these ancestors and to these documents, because I think there's something in here that can teach us something about liberation or the liberatory tradition that we're tasked to carry forth. And I've also been in a time over the last, I would really say maybe over the last 10 years of just really trying to understand how the lineages that I come from intersect in my body, but also are woven together and are not foreign to each other. And so I was writing letters to my ancestors. I was doing a lot of work. And at one point it was like in a meditative prayer space where it just became very clear to me that my Jewish ancestors, who I had sometimes in my mind constructed as very separate from my Black ancestors because of the ways that race is constructed here, it became very clear to me. They were like, we're here for this Black liberation journey. Like, use the rituals, like use the prayers, like this is all a part of, like, these exist in you on purpose, and can resource my journey around Black fugitivity. And so for me, that moment was like, okay, well, let me return to some of the rituals that I know that exist within Judaism that I had not yet put in relationship to my understanding of myself as a Black woman, and in terms of like just my commitment to Black liberation. And so I was really obsessed with the story of Exodus and Moses as a figure, as a liberator. For folks who are unfamiliar, Exodus is the book where the Israelites leave Egypt and their exploitation in Egypt, and are wandering in the desert for years, for generations. And so I was like, oh, there's something here. And I think a lot of that is within, like, also weaves itself into some Black liberation theology that's, within, that was used by folks who were enslaved. So I wanted to construct this structure. It's called a sukkah. And so in the story of Exodus, the sukkah it's like, literally it translates to booth. And it's like a tent that people constructed in the desert as they're navigating after they've escaped their enslavement. They're in this desert. So in the holiday where we honor that story, which is Pesach, commonly known as Passover, or sorry, there's so actually there's multiple holidays that honor this story. So the holiday that the sukkah is for Sukkot, but it's connected to the Passover story. And the idea is you construct a structure that has to have you have to be able to see the sky, and it can only have three walls. So you have to also you're not totally enclosed. And I think there's a lot of beautiful metaphor in that. One, because the Hebrews were using the stars as navigation and clouds as like spiritual communication, but also there's no doors. Like, so there's this idea that you're literally outside for 7 days, but you understand you're in a container, but you're also still connected to the world and the vulnerabilities that exist. And actually, the first day of Sukkot, the first thing that you do is invite in all your ancestors. So people often put their like ancestors on the wall, and direct ancestors and spiritual ancestors. Um, and for me, this holiday was about fugitivity, but that was like the first time it clicked to me. It was like, oh, this holiday is about people escaping their enslavement and figuring out how to build community in the wilderness that they're navigating. And so I decided to construct a sukkah that was completely made out of cardboard. And it was wheat pasted with fugitive slave ads, the fugitive slave ads that I've been working with, and lighting candles around, and like underlining the names and descriptions of the people. Because for me, those people, those freedom seeking ancestors, regardless of if that was like the only information I knew about them, and it came from a very problematic document, for me, it represented a person who risked everything to escape the brutality of slavery, and for a moment was able to do that. And hopefully for more moments um, beyond when they're documented in that ad. And then I invited folks to come and experience it and activate the space in the way that they felt moved to. I had a whole soundscape that was like, it was poetry. It was like sounds of water. It was like sound bites from Fred Moten and Sadia Hartman, and Audre Lorde and Octavia Butler. Like it for me, it was a soundscape. There were quotes from like my own uncle talking about our family history. My great uncle, not my uncle, but yeah. So it was just like, let me just build the thing and see what happens. Like that's actually the only instruction that I understood. And then what happened was beautiful. People came over the course of the weekend. Some people just ate in the space. Some people meditated in the space. One of my elder artist friends, she came in and just started telling stories of growing up in DC. And it just kind of became this like kind of a porch space to like, transmit memory. And then at the end of the weekend, it rained and everything, it folded in on itself. And I was like, okay. And that's it. You know what I mean? I have some pictures of the space and how we adorned it. But really, it was just creating the space for people to come, and then they decided how they would activate it. Um, and that's for me kind of an example of the ways that like my lineages inform and shape the way that I create space and create um, like an invitation for community to share their own memories and their own ancestral wisdoms. Sorry, that was a very
I
long, windy story.
No, that was an awesome story.
Perfect.
And I'm
Perfect.
actually right now, I'm looking through, I found it. Speaking of water, so before we actually started our show, Jessica pulled a card for us from her deck, How We Be Free, which we talked a little bit about this Black Fugitive Study Kit in our first episode. I think this is a great segue into that. If I can just say for just a second, this whole week there's been a theme of water. One, we're finally getting rain here. I know it's raining in DC too, but like we've needed rain and water so bad. And it's finally raining this weekend and Memorial Day weekend. Of course, everyone's mad because it's Memorial Day weekend. And I'm like, our lake is dry. Fill up the lake, baby. Like, let's go. But I also, yesterday was my mom's birthday, and I did a bunch of, I don't read tarot cards, but that's what she wanted for her birthday. So I had like a tarot reading and stuff for her. she just built a pond, and every tarot card had something to do with water and rain. And it's so I'm just like, right now my brain is like, okay, this is
Yeah.
kind of wild that you picked
Right.
the two of diamonds, which is, it says on this card, remember the waterways, and then if you turn upside down, the water's ways. And for those of you who are just listening to our episode, this is a red card and it's got a waterway squiggly line with those words. At the very top, it says remember, and then in the middle, it says remember the waterways. And if you turn upside down, the water, like apostrophe S ways. So the water's ways. I hope, does that make sense the way I explain that? Possessive?
Yes, that
Yes.
possessive noun.
Possessive noun. Yes.
Yes.
So this was a card that Jessica picked for us that we were meditating on for a moment before we started our episode. But before we get too much into some of those reflections, water reflections, get it? Can you talk a little bit, Jessica, about the study kit and what this is?
This is just it's an offering that has come out of several years of being in study and in creative practice and in spiritual practice around Black fugitivity, and really looks to honor our freedom-seeking ancestors, Black ancestors who escaped, who built networks of care for each other, who built free Black towns, who built multiracial abolitionist movements, who just created multiple means of escape and also led basically the road to emancipation, um, of which we are still, we're still on that road. Um, but for me, it was really important to look at all of their practices. And even for those who weren't able to escape, who are still confined to the plantation, ways that they subverted the system of slavery in their homes, in their like with how they used their time, with how they took back their time, with ways that they fought back. And for me, yeah, I just wanted to honor those legacies and honor the ways that those legacies can nourish current movements for abolition, for reparations, for land stewardship, for climate justice, for reproductive justice. And so for me, this is the study kit that came out of um, those multiple years of study and practice and being in community with folks. It's also like very much community nourished. So we had a series of kickback sessions where I invited folks to engage the kit and give feedback. And then later, we've had multiple iterations of the kit. I invited folks to be in a Black study cohort for over the course of a few months to engage the kit and to talk with each other. And so all of that has really shaped what this kit has come to be. And it includes a booklet that describes all the 52 cards in the deck, a set of playing cards, each of which has a bunch of different doodles and drawings, each of which speaks to a different aspect of Black fugitive legacies. And then it comes with a set of dice, 3 dice. And these all have different symbols that represent fugitive practices. So thinking about fixing a plate, thinking about herbal medicine, thinking about relationship to the waterways and literacy and stargazing, but thinking all of those as practices that people engaged in their liberation journey and that we can engage now as we continue the pursuit of collective liberation. So yeah, that's the 30-second, 1 minute how we be free.
I want to delve a little bit deeper into it with some very numerological questions.
Okay.
So there's 3 dice.
Yeah.
There are 52 cards in the deck, right? And then there's one book, right? So
Mhm.
I'm curious if any of those numbers have any significance when you, for example, I when I think of rolling dice, I think of two, right? So
Yeah, I
is
mean,
there
yes and yes and. I would say most of this well, the cards came out of just thinking about playing cards as a divinatory system and also as a way to support play and also to support like spiritual practice. Um, so so the playing cards I didn't choose that number. That's just the number that playing cards are. And then I kind of organized the scholarship and the things that I was studying and the drawings that I was making to fit the cards and the suits. So the suits are, they go by the regular suits, diamonds, clubs, spades, hearts, but they also correlate with the building blocks of free Black towns, which is land, spirit, study, and care. So there's ways that numerology is used to decide like which themes go with which numbers and which suits. But I didn't choose the number 52. That was already given by the technology of the cards. The dice, these actually came out of, I was just kind of noting fugitive practices that would come up a lot when I was reading a lot of the fugitive slave ads. So harboring, waterways, if people had relationship to people in the area. So cousining references that. Tree tech, so like ways people were navigating the land. So a lot of these just come out of like months and years of being in like the making of work around Black fugitivity, and these were the practices that kept coming up. But I do like the number three. I feel like the number three invites us into, you know, the triangle, thinking about change. The triangle represents water, but it also represents fire. And it's kind of like when you look at the alchemical systems, they're all based off of triangles. So the number three feels significant in that way. But really, it came from the practices themselves. And I would say also the number 18. So you have the dice has six sides and there's three of them. So 3 times 6 is 18. And within Judaic spirituality and mysticism, 18 is the number of life. It's like it's the letter Chai. So I think about like just the sacredness of that letter and that number, and wanting the dice to be life-giving. So that's some of the numerology behind.
Nice. Nice. And you're making me think of the 1 and the 8 and the 9 being a number of completion. I'm not sure which practice, a lineage of or numerology that is, but this is something that's in my head right now. When you said that, oh, like 9, I always think of 9 as the number of completion. And then just thinking about playing cards. Just growing up in DC, it was like spades, you know, like spades was the thing. And it's and thinking about my grandmother and how she would have card games going in her basement, you know, just the connections that your work helps me reflect upon. And how, when just considering how you went about the process of making this and how that speaks to the community and bringing all those energies together that we were talking about earlier, and having a community and helping create this, being able to put that out into the world. And that, I think, helping with this resonate with people as much as it possibly can. I had another thought, but it left me, and hopefully it comes back.
Well,
But
that made me
Danny,
think of
go ahead.
something else. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, something that you said around just like playing cards and like how cards gather people. Another thing that I think also felt important to me was when I was starting to think of cards, it was also around the time when we were seeing like the increased book bans that were happening. And I was thinking also about the ways that like the only anti-literacy laws in the US were used against Black people during slavery. And thinking about what were other ways that people passed along information and built a literacy. And some of that through symbols, some of that through song, some of that through language, some of that through just like hidden literacy, like literally hiding and learning how to read. So I think the cards also feel like a way to build literacy that's like, maybe it's not totally text-based, although there is some text on the cards, but it's a way to kind of like open up space for storytelling and sharing information and knowledge and wisdom. But yeah, I think also just like you could just play spades with it. Like, so like it could just be that. And I don't know, maybe some image on the card might inspire you, or maybe it'll like come back in a dream you had and inform some other information that you need to have. But it was also like you could just, be racking your books. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that also feels important, is like that aspect of play. And like sometimes we study, there's different ways to study. You know what I mean? Like some of that study is just by being in community with people and cutting it up and, talking smack about overbidding or,
Right. Why you overbidding? Oh, I can't stand that. I can't stand it.
So yeah, yeah. And my family, we used to play cards a lot when we were little. Our family's game was gin. We used to play rummy all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
I want you to finish your answer, but I do want to just say, yes, this to me felt like such a good balance of joy and fun, but also acknowledging some of the pain and I mean, a lot of pain and suffering in this journey. So I love that aspect of it, that it does both of those things. But yeah, do you want to talk more about the community part? Like, because you took a community to put it together too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful to the people who like were like trusted me and were like, okay, Jess, we're gonna rock with you and see what this is. And I think also, some of that feels scary too, because some information has been used against us or has been appropriated in ways that's like counter to. So I think folks are also protective, and I'm protective over like how do we share these histories in a way that's actually constructive and continues to honor our ancestors, and center them at every part of the work, at every step of the journey. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for folks saying yes and to be like, yeah, I'll check out this thing. And I had friends who opened their homes to me. Um, my friend Ray, my friend Asha, were like, yeah, we'll host a game night here, or I'll make some food. Um, so yeah, that was the first round, was doing a series of these kind of kickback sessions. And then I also had some friends who were just like really helpful with me in like creating the booklet. So shout out to my friend Carrie, who like helped me do the first round of edits, and like, because I have a lot of words, as you can see on this podcast. But he was like, okay, how do we make this one paragraph so that it fits in this one booklet and has just enough information that you can then go on to find more. And there actually is something that came out of the Black Study cohort, was a curriculum. So people offered like, here's other books you should read, or videos you should watch, or scholars you should check out. And so there's a curriculum that's also available that goes with the booklet. And there's a reference guide that gives you all the source material for what's in here, that's available online as well. So all of that was a community endeavor. I also consulted with Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who's a brilliant scholar that I'm very inspired by, and Tony Cohen, who's also a brilliant local scholar who's mapped out a lot of the Underground Railroad organizing in the Chesapeake region and specifically in Maryland. So I also consulted with them, and a brilliant scholar as well, Michelle Lanier, who's based in North Carolina and does a lot of work around like Afro-Carolinian legacies. Um, just to make sure that like the spiritual and historical integrity of the work was intact. So yeah, like there was a lot of things that I did on my own, but like none of this would have been possible without like the community of people who like answered the call, and also the community of folks who helped to fund this work. Like I was able to get resources from Humanities DC, the DC Commission, Washington, with the Washington Project for the Arts, Alternate Routes. Like there were, and I feel like I'm blanking on somebody, but people, the Opportunity Agenda, that I applied for fellowships so that I could pay people to like, that I could pay to feed people and be at this kickback, or I could pay for people to participate in the Black Study sessions, or I could pay the scholars for their time in reviewing the whole booklet. So it was also an investment from other folks that made it possible for me to really invite people in robustly. Yeah.
So, okay, we are getting closer to the end of our time, but we're going to take about 10 more minutes because it's just I didn't even see the time because
So
I
many
was
words.
so focusing, Jessica, the words are great. Like they are great and needed. And I'm so happy that you're expounding on everything. And I want people to go and purchase this. I want people to go to Jessica's website and purchase it. And I'm happy to hear that there is a study guide, like a curriculum that's attached to it. That's fantastic. I love that. You know, I'm always wondering, well, what is the source? How can I go deeper? So providing that is just awesome. I am looking at the booklet and I'm looking at page 63, talking about nines coming up. So I'm going to read this if y'all don't mind.
Please.
So let me turn this light on. I'm waiting for my new prescription glasses to come in. They say the people could fly, and they flew like blackbirds over the fields. Black, shiny wings flapping against the blue up there. From Virginia Hamilton. My mother used to read stories from The People Could Fly when I was a kid. This book. And this is yes, Danny is holding up the card. The king card. Is that clubs, right?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Yes.
And it's also a spirit card.
And so this is the page I turned to. This is the first page I turned to. Escape was often referred to as slave flight. Formerly enslaved people recounted stories of Africans who could fly. They flew away off the plantation and back home to Africa. In some versions of this story, it is noted that when Black people took to the skies, their hoes were left still working the ground. What ancestral gifts do I carry? How do I make space for my magic to emerge? I was thinking about when to share this, right? Because Danny and I are thinking about in part 3 of this collection, going through the cards with our study group. And so when I turned to this page, and then just today throughout the conversation that we've been having, I just wanted to get that out to our audience and to us. What ancestral gifts do I carry? Because this is really important. And how do I make space for my magic to emerge? And Jessica, you have given us so much guidance on this. And one of the things that you said that I think that I am going to start doing, because I have my altar, I do speak to my ancestors on a daily basis, but the letters, writing the letters, I think that is, Danny and I always talk about the takeaways. That's one of the takeaways from this episode is writing my letters to the ancestors. And that, to me, being indicative of no doors, like in your work. I don't want to say it incorrectly. Please say the name of the word.
The
sukkah. Yes. Having no doors and writing those letters to the ancestors. So I wanted to share that before we got off of here today.
I love that. And that is what it is. I remember, I feel like this was like 2016. I had gone on a retreat, a spiritual retreat. It was through Dr. G Love, who does incredible spiritual work and ancestral veneration and is a teacher. And one of the elders on the retreat, Nana Sakara, may she rest in peace. She did a reading with me. And one of the things that she said that was like really just sticks with me is that she said, you're a transmission to the community, but before you can heal other people, you have to heal yourself. And your healing is a gift to the community. And I think that message was for me, but also the message is for everyone. Like the more that we are tapping into our own lineages and the wisdom that is available to us through our own spiritual experience, the more we can be a vessel and a resource and an offering for each other and to support that work, because it's beautiful and it's also hard. And there's lots of joy and there's lots of grief and there's compromise and there's risk. There's like all of that. And, you know, our ancestors can hold a lot of it, but we also need to like hold each other, you know, like make the space to hold each other as we're moving through all of that. So, and yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that card specifically. And yeah, I hope that this conversation can inspire folks to return and bring forth their own offerings.
I
Yeah.
find it so interesting you chose this card too, Janet, because when Steve and I did this for the first time ever the other night, he picked this card. This was like the second card that he picked. And it was funny because what we did is we read it to each other. So if he picked the card, I would read it to him. And so when I asked him, what ancestral gifts do you carry? How do you make space for your magic to emerge? Um, that was a hard question, I think, for him. And then when I thought about it for me too, I was like, this is a hard question for me too, actually. And we both I felt like didn't get deep enough into it. And so it's something that was the like of all the questions that were on the different cards that we were reflecting on, that one was the hardest of like how are we magical, I think was the thing that was kind of throwing us off.
Mm.
Um, but I liked this idea of my art practices being magical and everything I do is artistic. Everything I do is art. So that was one takeaway that I had had from the other night of doing this. So I think it's so cool that you picked that card.
Yeah.
Yes, the through line, the
Yeah.
cosmos.
Yeah.
I think I mean, I don't want to like make any assumptions around your background either, because we're just
Yeah.
meeting each other. But there is something really violent in the way that like whiteness constructs and separates white people from their own ancestral lineages.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of what allows white supremacy to maintain itself, is then because then all, in that gap,
Hmm.
people invest in the privilege that they can suck out of the system. But there is this not what is the like an extraction that is happening. And I think
Hmm.
part of this work, the work of Black liberation, of collective liberation, is also like inviting folks back into an ancestral practice
Hmm.
and tending to the places where there's shame, where there's guilt,
Yeah.
um, where there's rupture, because there are also like a lot of white folks who were, supporting the abolitionist movement. There were the John Browns, like investing in understanding like where were the white freedom seekers or accomplices or
Hmm.
comrades, um, and also like where were the slave owners, and like that's part of the reparations work, is like
Hmm.
it's not just like a financial policy commitment. It's also like how do we
Hmm.
reckon with those histories in our own families, um,
Hmm.
with the people, like with our loved ones who we're in community with. So I'm glad that y'all sat with that question, and I hope that
Yeah.
it continues
Yeah.
to like create a space to tend to those histories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for making this. I've messed around with a couple of different decks, especially with my students, and I'm really looking forward to thinking about how I could use this with my students, especially now that I know you have a curriculum and all this other cool stuff that comes with
Yeah.
it. But it's this one, I think because honestly with my boyfriend too, like he loves playing cards. He loves playing cards, and we play cards a lot, but the fact that this looked like a card deck, like even when he opened it up, he was like, "Oh, it's a card deck," and I was like, "Yeah, I told you it was." He was like, "Yeah, but I didn't know it was going to be like an actual card deck," and I was like, "Yeah, we can like play rummy if you want." So it just felt like a little bit more accessible in a way, and a more I just related to it in a way than I have with other decks that I've played with. So which I'm not going to go into like comparing it. Also, I know we're at time. But I really, really appreciate this. And I'm looking forward to getting deeper into it in a study group in our next episode. And I already have a couple of friends who are like, I want to do this with you. So I'm excited about that. I actually have one Indigenous friend who really wants to try it. And I'm very curious about her opinion of it. So, yeah, Janet, is it time?
It's time for the surprise.
The
So
surprise question.
I'm gonna mute myself and Danny, do your thing.
I'm gonna do the sound effects. Bleep, 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 as on the screen comes our bleep, 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 beautiful, magical RFC unicorn. Bleep, 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 bleep. So, Jessica, for our surprise question that we ask all of our guests, this is our unicorn question. We like to ask, Jessica, in your utopia, there would be dot dot dot.
Hmm. So many things. There would be so many things. The first thing that came to mind would be like absolutely chocolate chip cookies. But thinking of it seriously, just like, everyone being fed and housed and have a space where they can be fully self-expressed and held in their dignity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a million other things I want too.
Yeah.
At the base of it, that.
Yeah. And when you think about that, it's like, is that so much to ask for? Is that so much, really?
It's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody, not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but it feels like the majority of people who are when our special guests answer this question, it's the same through line. It's like we just want everybody to be happy.
Yeah.
like it's
Happy, healthy, and
and
whole. Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's wow.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to be happy. Like, why isn't that the case right now? Like, what?
Yeah.
Just joy, just healthy, just whole.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, Jessica, for entertaining that question. We know chocolate chip cookies are of utmost importance. My toddler
I'm on a cookie fast right now, so it's on my mind.
a cookie fast.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so
still in on the chocolate chip cookies, so I have to go through like certain periods where I'm like, none.
None.
okay, got it. I have to do the same. I'm definitely trying to make sure that my child understands everything in moderation. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
everything in
Mm-hmm.
moderation. But it's so good. It's so good. So, Jessica, thank you so much
Y'all both, yes.
for being here with us. Oh my gosh, this has been wonderful. As usual, we can talk more and more and more. Thank you for all that you have given us, and thank you for How We Be Free, a Black Fugitive Study Kit. Am I saying this correctly? I just want to make sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Black Fugitive Study Kit. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank y'all.
Okay, so man, it's always sad when we have to close these wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful spaces out. But we will be back in part 3 of the Quotidian Radicality
See, it's not just me.
Collection.
It's not just me.
Right?
What
Right?
I
Here
say
we
last
are.
time, the quota idiom,
Yeah, the quote.
quotodian. Yeah.
Quotidian.
Yeah.
Yes. So, all right, in part 3 of the Quotidian Radicality
You got
Collection,
it.
we'll reflect on Jessica's work and the topic with a few guests in our RFC study group on Saturday, June 13th, 2026 at 1 p.m. live. So mark your calendars now, please. Saturday, June 13th, 2026, 1 p.m. ET live. And subscribe to the channel because then you'll get the notification and you won't ever miss any of our shows. Remember to like as well and to share with your network. We want to spread this love, so please help us spread this love by sharing with your networks. You can also view and listen to past episodes on our channel and any of your podcast streaming services. So yeah, any of those services. All right. So once again, subscribe. I'm gonna give a moment. Subscribe.
Click, 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 click.
Subscribe. Okay, thank you. So we'd like to remind our listeners that this podcast is funded by the two of us and your donations. Please help us keep our podcast going by making a cash money donation through our PayPal link in the show notes below. All right. So we will see y'all on June 13th at 1 p.m. ET. Be there. Don't be square.